It's not a stretch to say that the house the characters were sorted into changed the entire course of their lives. The idea of the sorting hat and the concept of the houses is actually really flawed. The characters are sorted into the houses because somehow a magical relic was able to determine which qualities defined them, regardless of who they may become in the future. If you look at the house system at its most basic level, it's a system that forces children who are still getting to grips with the world into boxes that will define them for the rest of their lives. It is essentially telling all the students that they should take pride in and value a narrow set of personality traits. Each house has a set of qualities that all students in that house are expected to uphold. Gryffindors are to be brave, Ravenclaws are to be intelligent, Slytherins are to be ambitious, and Hufflepuffs are to be loyal. Now, none of these terms are actually bad things to be, but in everyday society we read between the lines and give them other meanings. Bravery is all about heroics. If you're brave, you self-sacrifice. You're there to further the common good by helping those in need. You're fearless, which can lead to being an attention seeker. Intelligence is always valued, even when people want to tear it down out of spite. Smart people are always essential, they are always valuable. If you're smart, you are meticulous, the person to call upon in a crisis. You have expertise and that is required in all areas of life. Intelligence is great, of course it is, but if that's your primary characteristic, you might also be cold and detached. Wit is entertaining, but it is often scathing as well. If you're too logical, you run the risk of being too cautious in your approach to life. Ambition often reads as selfishness. You're completely focused on your own progress and goals. You look out for number one and all that matters in your station in life. And loyalty, that reads as being a follower, with a tendency towards feebleness. You find the strong voice, latch onto it, and you are there until the bitter end, whether or not it's in your best interest. These often biased and misleading meanings can lead to people from those houses feeling targeted and stereotyped. In turn, it can lead to a culture of being isolated to your Hogwarts house, with an unnecessary bias against any house that is not your own. Even if you look at the attitude of the students when it comes to the House Cup, you see division that is bred in a culture of competitiveness. While the sorting hat will occasionally falter on people like Harry, nobody can be in more than one house. When Harry asks the hat to put him in Gryffindor and not Slytherin, Ravenclaw, or even Hufflepuff, he's not just asking to be sorted into a house with the rest of his new friends. He's choosing bravery over ambition, cleverness, and loyalty, which also defines the way the rest of the Potter universe will see him in the future. Harry might very well have those other qualities, but he'll go down as that brave wizard from Gryffindor who defeated Lord Voldemort. Becoming a good, decent human being means learning to develop more than just one trait. Hogwarts and the Sorting Hat lets its students down on day one by telling them this is who you are now. It also has a ripple effect for the reader, giving them a two-dimensional lens through which to see the wizarding world. When Molly Weasley faced off against Bellatrix Lestrange, you only saw her Gryffindor courage, not her fierce Hufflepuff loyalty to her family, which was equally as important. The things we remember the characters most for in the books come from a mixture of traits that go far beyond what a hat once told them when they were 11 years old. Even Snape's undying devotion to Lily Potter shows great loyalty. Hermione obviously could have been a Ravenclaw, and Dumbledore should really have been in Slytherin, as prior to the books his ambition got the best of him, and cost him the life of his sister Ariana when he teamed up with Grindelwald. Think about it. The man had a deep inner lust for power. What's more ambitious than that? Everywhere you look, the Harry Potter characters strain to become more than their house motto. The house system is just the glaring paradox at the centre of the Harry Potter series that keeps people apart. The real world and the Wizarding World spend so long trying to tell us who we should be, that we spend a long time striving towards that and not becoming who we actually are. And in the real world, we go around drawing these imaginary lines in the sand that are tearing us apart. And I hate to say it, but it can also lead to a toxic fan base, where fans are constantly arguing with one another over a Hogwarts house and what that says about you. When you really think about it, it's kind of ridiculous to expect someone to only be one thing and one thing only. people don't remain unchanged. They're way more complex than that. As you grow older, you learn, you morph slightly every year thanks to experience, and you shape yourself into your own version of yourself. Those changes are even more drastic when you're in your adolescent years. The concept of being forced to enter one house when you're just 11 years old can have drastic ramifications for the witch or wizard in question. Prime example, look at Neville Longbottom. He used to be insecure because Gryffindors have to be brave, and he felt he wasn't brave enough to be in Gryffindor, leaving him to feel unworthy and act in ways that were against his personality. By sorting students into a house, the sorting hat is telling them who they have to be. It's putting the expectations of a house they probably didn't choose on them, so it puts limits on the kind of person they can be. These stereotypes and expectations lead us to constantly define others. The stereotypes go so deep they even determine if you can be trusted or not. In the Battle of Hogwarts, Slytherins weren't even asked if they wanted to stay and fight. And all because they weren't deemed to be trustworthy enough, just for being Slytherin, not anything that was actually based on their character or personality. They were all immediately identified as enemies and sent away. It's true that many of their families were allies with the Death Eaters, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't have chosen to fight against them, if given the opportunity. And it's not only the expectations and stereotypes they throw upon students. They are also forced to grow up among a group of people who start off as they did with the same expectations from their peers. Being surrounded by students who have been characterized by one trait also lessens the probability that students will start to question themselves and grow to be different. Snape grew up among a group of pure-blooded elites who believed they were superior to any other creature on Earth. He only questioned his way of thinking when it was already too late, and only because of his love for Lily. How could have it been any different when the people he spent most of his time with thought exactly as he did? The house that students belong to has a deep effect on their personality and the people they become as adults. Even Dumbledore was of the opinion that students were sorted way too early. Maybe everything would have been better if people were given the chance to develop their personalities before they were identified by the name of a house. If people were given a bit more time, at least they would get to know themselves better before someone else told them who they had to become. It would have been better for the series to break down those walls. Even in a fictional world, it would have made the point of bringing people together and not tearing them apart.